Okay, good afternoon to everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I want to wish a good afternoon to everybody and good morning to some of those of you who might be joining us from the West Coast. My name is Joe Capello. I'm the library's Chief Human Capital Officer, and I'm thrilled that you're here with us today for this Library of Congress Career Showcase. This is designed to tell you more about the largest library in the world and to describe the Director IT Service Operations position. The job position is currently open and remains so until October 10th. We have Judith Conklin with us today. She's the Chief Information Officer for the library. Judith will tell you more about what the position entails. We'll provide you an opportunity to ask questions near the end of our presentation. And one note on that, please use the Q&A function to submit your questions, not the chat function, but the Q&A function. In addition, you'll see an option to submit your question anonymously. And you may also go into your settings and change the identifier on your profile to Anonymous 2022. If we don't get to all the questions during the hour, we'll place them in a document alongside the recording of this webinar on the Career Showcase page of the library's website. We'll also post some general information about being a federal employee within the legislative branch, including federal pay and compensation, retirement, and other important details. But first, Dr. Carla Hayden, the Librarian of Congress, recorded a virtual video tour of the library, and she also describes 3 imperatives that inform our actions and focus our energies each and every day. Dr. Hayden?
Hello, everyone. I'm Carla Hayden, the Librarian of Congress, and I could not be more pleased that you're considering the Library of Congress as your new work home. We are the largest library in the world, but we're so much more than that. In addition to our vast and varied collections, we're the home to the main research arm of the United States Congress and to the U.S. Copyright Office. Without question, we're an essential resource to scholars and researchers as diverse as the disciplines they represent. But we are also the people's library, a place where everyone who loves learning can experience the joy of discovery, the delight of a story well told, and the wonder of the wisdom of the centuries. That's the Library of Congress in a few words. But as someone who's considering joining our ranks, I'm sure you want to know more. 3 imperatives drive us every day, informing our actions and focusing our energies. The first is to engage. We're in the business of engaging with writers, researchers, and the public at large with our unparalleled collection of original manuscripts, ancient maps, rare books, photographs, films, sound recordings, journals, newspapers, and more. Whether they are recounting and interpreting current events for future generations, writing the next bestseller, or diving into family genealogy, we engage. And that includes the millions of Americans who are blind or live with other disabilities, providing contemporary literature in a variety of accessible formats. The second of our 3 imperatives is to inspire. We provide an impressive range of programs, exhibitions, knowledge centers, and marquee library events to extend our reach and inspire learners of every age. Whether through the Veterans History Project, the National Book Festival, our digital learning labs, the StoryCorps archive, or a host of other initiatives, we are focused on igniting imaginations and feeding the hunger for knowledge. Number 3, we are here to inform. We provide Congress, the judiciary, and federal agencies across the board with round-the-clock access to a vast storehouse of knowledge in print, online, and via consultation with scholars and deeply experienced subject matter experts from the Congressional Research Service, the U.S. Copyright Office, the Law Library, and the Kluge Center. Informing our constituents is what we do and why we are here. So what does all of this mean to you? Someone considering making the Library of Congress your work home. It means that you'll be a guardian of knowledge, a gateway to access, a guide to people of every age and background. I can think of no higher calling. And now I turn the proceedings over to some of my much valued colleagues.
My name's Judith Conklin. I'm the Chief Information Officer at the Library of Congress. I've been at the Library of Congress for almost 26 years. I started in January 1997, another century. I have been at different levels within the agency, within this institution, starting off in the then IT organization called ITS. I then left after 7 years and went for 13 years in what I'll call the business side or the customer side. And I had the fortune of working and learning the mission of several different organizations, business units, and you might hear me call them service units. That's what we call them here at the Library of Congress. And that really gave me another view and more understanding of the Library of Congress mission. And then in 2015, I became the DCIO. We were restructured and went from that ITS to an OCIO organization, and I became the DCIO and stayed as the DCIO for 6.5 years, little over. And in September of 2021, I became the CIO. On the call with us is also John Rutledge, our new DCIO. It's not really new anymore. We've been in place for 1 year as of last Monday. So that's a little bit about me. I am committed to the Library of Congress and its mission. And not only am I committed, but I am very I'm in love with our institution. And that's what I would like to try to impart with you today, is to share what we do and why you would love being here. Start with the Library of Congress organization chart, and that's what's up on the screen. I'm not going to go into every box, but first of all, our agency, our institution is led by Dr. Carla Hayden, and she became the Librarian of Congress in September of 2016. Just a side note, within 1 or 2 months, she directed that the IT or technology be centralized at the Library of Congress. So before, it was decentralized and dispersed through out all the business units, and each of these groups had IT functions. That no longer is a fact. If you're government, you'll know what a 2210 is, but all technology people now work in OCIO. So we have a principal deputy librarian, Mark Sweeney, and then we'll go off to the left. And when you hear about the Library of Congress, you think about library things, and that's really what Library Collections and Services Group is. And I won't go down into those specifics, but what's interesting here is we have the largest law library in the world. We have a vast amount of collections at the Library of Congress, and we'll get into that a little bit with analog collections versus digital, which impacts this role. And we do have National Library Service for the blind and physically or print disabled at Taylor Street right now, but they will be moving, and that's to provide books on tape that's been recorded, and a lot of modernization going on there that we're involved in. And down in those LCSG groups, Library Collections and Services groups, down in those service units, there you'll see catalogers, 500 catalogers who catalog books, and acquisitions people. We have 6 overseas offices, which most people don't know, and that falls under LCSG. And their purpose is to acquire collections that Congress may be interested in, that we don't have a good way of receiving those collections. And so we support 6 overseas offices and their IT needs. And I'll go now to the right-hand side, and that's the Office of the Librarian. And our exhibits, our visitor services is within that area. And we have a lot of we have a development group. We also the typical things like a OGC, and then Office of Communications. Then there in the middle, you'll have some mission type of organizations. First of all, my organization, OCIO, we'll dive into that a bit deeper. The Chief Operating Officer, and that's the facilities type areas, but also contracts, and the CFO resides there, and the Human Capital Directorate, and where Joe Capello, who spoke first, he resides there. And then Congressional Research Service, led by Mary Mazanick. They cater to Congress. Their mission is 2 members of Congress and their committees, and their staff and committees on analysts performing analysis on whatever Congress would like them to do analysis for. And they're about 500 or 600, the size of for the size of them. And the next is the United States Copyright Office. So if you wrote a book and you want to register it, you go through those systems in the Copyright Office to register it. And they do a lot more. They have several lines of business: recordation, registration, licensing, but I won't bore you with that. What's important to take home on this page, on this chart, is that they're very diverse missions. And when supporting technology at the Library of Congress, it's important to note that they're so diverse. What CRS, Congressional Research Service, needs versus Copyright Office is vastly different. And we as an OCIO organization have to keep that in mind, and everything we do keeps that in mind. Just a minute, lost my notes. And then the other important thing to note is we are a legislative branch agency, and the legislative branch acts a little bit different if you are coming, or if you are currently in the executive branch, and you came to the legislative branch, you'd realize there are a lot of differences. We're very close to Congress, and we sometimes answer directly to committees on any issue they want to talk to us about. But the other thing is we do not always follow policies of the executive branch, like OPM policies. NIST is another example. We do not have to follow NIST, but we choose to follow NIST in that case. And there are a few exceptions. We do have to abide by NARA policies. We don't do the president's management agenda or the report card if you've ever had to do that. So next slide, please. So this is currently the OCIO organization chart. What's important about this is, first of all, what do we do in OCIO? well, led by me, the CIO, we provide the vision, leadership, and capability, services, and advice to ensure the library digital and information technology resources and initiatives facilitate the library's current and future requirements. And it goes on. So as delegated by the Librarian of Congress, who I directly report to, the CIO has final authority over all technology decisions and matters for the agency. And Dr. Hayden did that because she wanted, maybe one neck to choke, but seriously, she wanted to all be going in the same direction, and to solve some technology problems we were having back in 2014, 2015. And so that was the centralization authority that she created. Our organization chart, first, the top, you'll notice the CIO and the DCIO are in the same box. That's so any of those dark orange on the second layer and the third layer, we can have those directors change reporting, whether it's to the DCIO or CIO, and that my philosophy is CIO and DCIO need to be synced constantly. And within that box, I have the CISO reporting directly to me. I consider IT security very a priority. And then we have communications, and Alice is leading this, or doing our this showcase for us, but this is a typical thing. But we really wanted to have a communications office to help us with our congressional needs and our public, our press, but also improve communications within the agency. And I believe we have done that. I'm very proud of that shop. And then we have an admin group here. Also in 2016, I created a business continuity disaster recovery group program because up to that point, BCDR was not, did not have dedicated personnel to it. We have vastly improved that, and I'm very proud of that box. The top, the next line, I like to call it the strategic line. It's digital strategy. And then IT governance, and if you can think of all of our financial side, excuse me, that's not financial side, our planning side, the EA side, and you can ask questions about that, but that's our IT governance. All our policies and directives, and then the IT financial management, that's our since we're in a centralized environment, we all IT purchases go through us, and so it's from the budget to the execution side, the contract side. We are a TBM shop and technology business management. So if you don't know what that is, go ahead and read up on that. And then we also in 2016 created this directorate called IT Quality and Performance Management. We instituted recently an ITSM governance board, and a new vision of mine is to improve ITSM based on the ITIL framework and those 34 process areas. And then the bottom half of the org chart, I try not to say it that way, but it's more of the tactical or the operational side. We have very, very large development shop, IT design and development. And then partner engagement includes the project management office, which one did not exist before this org chart in 2016. Or 2017. And then we have liaisons, customer liaisons to interface with those business units, and then our end user computing or services. And that's where our laptops and our computers and things like that are. And the last is the one we're here to talk about, and I won't talk about it on this slide because we're going to go into depth here. So go to the next slide. These are the core values. Oh, can you go back one? Sorry, I missed the mission, so I won't read that to you, but that is our mission and our vision and our imperatives. But we worked hard on this mission statement, and if you've all ever been in an organization where you had to write your mission statement, you realize how much goes into that. But we spent a lot of time on this, and this will take us into the next. This is our new mission statement. This will take us into our next, what I will talk about, a directional plan. Go ahead to the next slide. And this next slide talks about, well, every CIO needs some core values. So we wrote these core values for our directional plan. So really, what is a directional plan? At the highest level of the Library of Congress, there is a Library of Congress strategic plan, and then each of the business units have a directional plan. And of course, OCIO will have one. This is our new directional plan. These are our statements under our new directional plan, and I won't read them to you, but it's FY23. It's a 5-year directional plan starting in FY23. So that's what you're looking at here. And then from that, we have our annual performance goals that are taken from our directional plan, but also that strategic plan. We look up towards that strategic plan, and every piece of our directional plan is taken from that library strategic plan. Yes, strategic plan. And we can go to the next slide. So what do I expect out of an IT service operations director? From here on out, I'm going to call it ITSO, the ITSO director. On the left-hand side is the what we call KSAs in the government, and I won't repeat those since you've probably already taken a look at those. But what do I expect out of a ITSO director? I do expect the person to be at an executive level, to be able to perform at an executive level, and experience managing the infrastructure, that IT operations. I expect them to be a multitasker, to juggle many balls in the air at one time. And that is a difficult part of this position. And if you've worked in the infrastructure side, the tactical side, the operational side of an IT organization, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I won't read all of these to you, but I expect great communication skills from an orally be able to explain technical concepts to non-technical people in a non-technical way. And that's an art in itself, but also to be able to write, and things that are coming up to this director's position, to edit those documents that the person didn't write, the director didn't write, but make sure the concepts are very clear before it makes it to my level. And it is a very multidisciplinary team of approximately 150 people, including FTEs and contractors. If you're not government, FTE stands for full-time equivalent. It means it's a government person. Just a minute. And let's go to the next slide. So this is the current org chart for ITSO. There are 138 FTE, excuse me, 91 FTEs and 47 contractors. So the reason why the numbers change is depending on how our contracts are doing at any given time. Tim, who he was introduced by Joe, the current ITSO director, created a mission here and a vision statement. It's broken out into 3 divisions. The O&M has the servers and the database, and we do have Unix and then also some Windows, or a lot of Windows, but also very large database team. Then our integrated delivery is, think about your change control board is there. Production engineering has a lot of our cloud things, but also we've asked Congress in FY23, which we don't know if it's approved yet, for a cloud program office, and it will be in ITSO, the cloud program office. And then our data center management, our data centers and our voice and data networking, as well as our infrastructure. So we have a cabling team, we have an in-house cabling team, and our WAN, our LAN, our ISPs are all there. This org chart for ITSO will change. The org chart I showed you for OCIO is changing a little bit, but and we're working on that right now. I chose not to, in this reorganization, I chose not to affect ITSO right now until a new director is hired. And so we'll do that next iteration of a reorg. And we can go to the next slide. So this is our data center architecture. Tim, you know, every IT person, especially managers, like to create acronyms. And so Tim came up with DC 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. You won't see a DC 1 on here because our DC 1, our data center 1, was in the Madison building on Capitol Hill. We asked money from Congress to move our data center, and we did. And so now what's left in DC 1 is called the TOC, Tactical Operations Center. That Tactical Operations Center houses the typical things that you would think about. You know, your communications needs and any system that needed to stay there here on Capitol Hill in the Madison building. We moved everything either to a tier 3 facility, what we call DC4, which is very geographically dispersed, far away, and it's an on-prem solution, but we also moved a lot to the cloud. We do have a tier 1 facility called DC2, and that we put in place around 2002. And we have a lot there, and it's closer. And then we have a data center. It's tier 1. If you don't know what tiers are, you can ask the question in the Q&A. DC3 is down in Culpeper, Virginia. We have a site in Culpeper called National Audiovisual Conservation Center, where the Library of Congress archives film and audio materials. And we can go to the next slide. Let me just say a couple of things there, sorry. We do have ISP connections, you can see by those green arrows. And we are following the Cloud Smart. If we can put it in the cloud, my first goal is to go SaaS. If we can't go SaaS, cloud, and then on-prem. And I'll talk about storage in a minute. Next slide. So this is our storage. As you can imagine, the Library of Congress, actually, why don't you go up one slide? Oh, we didn't cover this one yet. Now I'm, okay, I'll talk through this slide. Got it. Our storage, you'll see 174 petabytes there, and by the numbers, everything else. So the IT systems you see there, that includes GSS's major applications, or major systems and minor systems and sub systems. And then I won't read the rest to you. We do have, except for our internet connections, 6 of those throughout our WAN, our DWDM. And then I already talked about each of these in the other slide. And the overseas offices, we do provide support for those 6. They most of them are in an embassy for the State Department, and we do provide firewall support, exchange support, as well as a few other things. So we can go to the next slide. And with that,
And
Ellis,
Judith, did you want to talk
we
about the
skip-
storage? Yeah, we skipped a
yeah,
slide.
Yeah,
we
we
Back
skipped
to
a
the
slide.
storage.
Yeah, I got confused. Yeah, let's
back
go
up
back
to-
to storage.
Yeah, let's do the storage slide.
There we go.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so thank you, John. So we do have a lot of storage. And what's really important on the storage is, whereas it might have, it's been incrementally increasing through the years, but it's about to take a vast spike. Currently, we have, on the other slide, I said more than 86. Well, first of all, petabytes. First of all, this is 2021 numbers. But when we talk about storage at the Library of Congress, we talk about preservation storage and presentation storage. There's also business data, like your financial data, your human capital data, things like that. But from a collection standpoint, we talk about preservation and presentation. And what I mean by that is, if you can, when you think about the analog side, when we either receive, we either have storage from a born digital or a digitize, or from digitizing. We then need to keep what I like to call a gold copy of the best file, or the best copy of that collection, and we put that somewhere. That's preservation. We don't serve that specific one up. But presentation data is what, if you go to LOC.gov, you will see you can bring up railroad maps, for instance, or newspapers, or a lot of collections that we've digitized or we received born digital. And that's our presentation data. So what is changing in the very near future? We receive a lot of our collections from the Copyright Office when they're registered, if they're published, and that's going to come into our storage when they begin accepting e-preferred. So they're going to an e-preferred format soon, and there's a lot of different types of collections. So as that happens, we're going to raise in our storage significantly, and how we manage that storage and how we ingest those collections, those digital collections, and not just from the internet, but also throughout the Library of Congress systems when we ingest. And we have a system we developed, an application we developed just for ingesting. If you can just imagine how big that is, how important that is. So that's our storage. And let's go back. And I had one more thing to say here. Just going through my other notes, just to finish before Ellis talks about this slide. We do have a lot of new initiatives. What we're working on right now. We are changing. We're developing an enterprise copyright system, which has all their lines of business modules for all their lines of business. And some of their lines of business, we are changing. The Copyright Office has chosen to go from their manual workflows to a digital workflow. If you're interested in some of our development, go take a look at congress.gov. It is fantastic that we do the development and the upkeep of congress.gov according to what the House and Senate needs, and also the public. Also, if you're interested, go to LOC.gov. We have a lot of data up there. And as Dr. Hayden, one of her mantras is open up the treasure chest. And we're trying to put more and more of our digitized and born digital materials up on LOC.gov. And we're constantly improving that and putting more and more material up there. We are moving to M365 in this next year. So the ITSO director will have that a huge responsibility to make that happen successfully. We're moving more to the cloud. And one of my big visions for this year and next year is to improve ITSM service management. And we have adopted the ITIL framework. I finished this with stating, as I said at the beginning, I'm committed to the Library of Congress and our mission, and I'm very excited about a new ITSO director. And I want someone to come in that is excited about our mission, as excited as I am about our mission and all the initiatives we're doing. There's a lot more initiatives than that, but those are big ones. We're also upgrading or replacing our in-building wireless system. So a lot going on. With that, I'll hand it over to Ellis.
Hi, folks. Thank you, Judith. I'm the OCI Communication Director, as Judith noted, and I'm going to field some Q&A for folks here. A reminder, if you have questions, please use the Q&A panel on Zoom. You can find a button on the bottom of your screen and type in your questions there, and we will field them. Judith, let's start with one that we got. What are some near-term major initiatives that ITSO is working on that you think folks should know about?
Well, we still are decommissioning that DC-1 and moving our systems to their best hosting environment. We still have some legacy systems that we need to get decommission, but some of those are systems, some of those are servers, storage, that we're still working on removing some of our legacy systems. As you people in IT know, that is monumental. As I said, Microsoft 365, that's pretty huge. And Tim, you can add in what else. By the way, if someone asked, where's Tim going? And I kind of thought that was a funny question. He is retiring. He was polite enough to say, hey, I'm retiring at this time. And he told me with a lot of advance time, so we were able to do this posting and have him help us on the panel for his replacement. So what do you consider the big initiatives for ITSO director?
I think you covered the major ones. The out years that are coming up, we're also planning to keep reducing our technical debt and expand. I guess one of the major ones, which Judith, you touched on, is to expand our storage and the ingest of all the new digital storage that we've got coming in. That is, and we're in the process of rebuilding that now in conjunction with the library services, the law library, copyright, to make that a better system so that we can ingest data faster and present it to the public in a really short time frame. So that's a major one, Judith.
Thank you.
And of course, the cellular, the cellular is a good one. And I believe you mentioned the staff Wi-Fi as well. That project is going, but that may be almost done by the time we get the new person in. So we're moving pretty fast.
Building off that, we had a question. Has the library looked at storage as a service?
I think I'll take that first, Tim, then you can add on.
Judith, you need to adjust your mic.
Oh, I'll take that first, and then Tim, you add on. First of all, storage at the Library of Congress is far different than typical storage. And so thinking of storage as a service and what I left out was there will always be a gold copy of our preservation storage on-prem. There will always be, because if a contract goes awry or something happens, that is, the national treasure right there. So go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, so we have looked into it. We have a storage conference annually because we do storage a little bit differently than industry does, to get new ideas on how to better ingest our data, better manage our data, and better present our data to the public. When we rely on a vendor to provide our storage, sometimes they don't move as fast as we need to move. They're not as agile in order for us to do the things that we need to do here. We create a lot of things that are later used in industry. The NLS created a recorder that we've been using for several years that industry has picked up on, things like that. So we're looking at DNA. We're not really looking at, as Judith said, we have to keep one copy on-prem forever. And then we do keep gold copies off-site, just in case of, whatever disaster comes along, if any.
Great, thank you. Have a higher level question, which Joe might want to weigh in on too here. How does the library measure how well we're meeting our mission, vision, and imperatives?
Sure, Ellis. Could you go to slide 3 that you had in the presentation, and I'll try to hit this real quick.
Absolutely.
In the organization chart that Judith talked about at the very beginning of the presentation, each one of the business lines or service units that you see depicted here go through an exercise every year that we have actually all just concluded, which is our directional planning. As part of the directional planning, we're formulating annual performance goals. Our performance goals align to the strategic plan. And our mission, values in some service units, as well as what you alluded to in the question for imperatives, are actually part of that directional planning exercise. They are measured on a quarterly basis. We are responsible for recording and reporting those on a quarterly basis, and depending on whether or not it is a performance goal within a line of business, or if it's been determined that it's an agency level goal. And OCIO, as an example, has several that are agency level because they're enterprise offerings. Those are reported to the executive committee. So that's a quick overview to try to address that question.
Judith, do you want to add anything to
No, thank you, Joe.
There's a question about the ITSA org chart and that the operation and maintenance division is separate from the Windows, Unix, web, and database management. Is there, the question is there a strategic reason why those weren't all under data center management?
Yeah, can you go back to that org chart?
Yes, Sahar, will you pull up the ITSA? Thank you.
One more.
Two more.
Oh, two.
Three
Yeah,
more.
two.
There we
There you
go.
go. Thank you. The O&M part, that's our servers and database and storage. That we call that O&M. For instance, our exchange is over there. The data center management is truly, we are very large. So the data center management is more so the actual data centers, what it takes to maintain an on-prem data center, but also our telecom side, our data side, and our firewalls, that and the cabling team, that infrastructure management. And so I think if you look at the higher level, IT service operations encompasses it all. If we slid data center management over there, it would just equal IT service operations. So we have different division chiefs there, and those light orange boxes, and the rest are led by section chiefs. Anything to add, Tim?
Yeah, this is, of course, this looks legacy. I'm sure that's where the question came from. We are slowly moving in the direction of a new production type environment, but this is the first iteration. When I got here in 2016, there was really very little structure and more work than we had staff for. So we built it up to this, and then the next phase of this is to move more into the era that you're talking about with O&M or operations, being specific operations. The sections, even though they're shown as broken out here, they're broken down for another reason. It's to keep the supervisor and employee ratio as small as we can, so that it's easier to manage the staff. The staff and the section chiefs all work together every day on different projects, because we do have projects that are multi-flavored, if you will. So part of the system's in Unix, and part of the system, or excuse me, Linux, and part of the system may be in Windows. And we will also work with the developers. So we have a lot in that aspect where they work together a lot, especially across directorates in OCIO. So we do work with the developers, and we do work with our desktop folks, the EUS staff, and our, excuse me, what is it, PE? Anyway, I forgot what it is right now. Anyway,
Partner
engagement.
that's it, partner engagement, forgive me. We work together as a collective team, and we build, in essence, we're building production teams, but we're still very, we're not very mature with that process yet. I hope that answered your question.
We have a practical question here, Joe. It's probably more for you. Will benefits from executive branch transfer if you move to ledge branch?
Absolutely. I came here to the legislative branch from the executive branch via Department of Homeland Security, Department of Defense, Department of Justice, and all of my accrued leave, benefits, all transferred here to the legislative branch. We're under the exact same federal retirement system, essentially the same pay structure as well as benefits. So they do transfer.
Okay, we have just a couple more minutes here. If anybody has any additional questions, please use the Q&A field on the bottom of your screen to drop them in. Have one from a different channel. Judith, for OCIO, what would you say the top priority is for you as the CIO, specifically for this position, but in general as well?
My top priority is to support the mission of the Library of Congress. if we are not doing that well, or if they don't need us anymore, then that's a problem. So my top priority is to ensure that Dr. Hayden's mission that she's prescribed or that she has stated is fully supported. And I meet with my peers at the what we call the executive committee level. I meet them often, and I am committed to, for instance, the copyright register, being able to complete her mission and her goals of modernizing copyright systems. So it's that mission.
A technical question. Has there been any consideration of evaluating the ITIL framework to see if it's in line with supporting the mission of the library and implementing it?
It's funny you say that. So we, about a year and a half or 2 years ago, I put on the, as I said, I wanted more focus on IT service management. We had already adopted the ITIL framework back in 2016. When we came up with that org chart, we had first done an operating model, an OCIO centralized operating model. We did that first. And then from this operating model, we created that org chart. Then recently, the 18 months ago, with that new focus on ITSM, I created an ITSM governance board, and we meet monthly. We have very deliberate, we're making deliberate steps, but also we had a vendor recently come in, actually two, now that I think about it, and I don't want to talk vendors' names here. One, take a look at some of our processes as it pertains to our system, that our service management system, our then also I do have currently an independent an assessment from a consultant in taking a look at doing an independent assessment on 3 areas, and then also some of those ITIL processes. So they're looking at the infrastructure, they're looking at the IT security and the end user services from a configuration standpoint, and that user experience, and improving that user experience. And so in that consulting SOW are some of those ITIL, they're weighing in on some of those ITIL process areas.
Thank you. I think we've got time for 1 or maybe 2 more, but we have a question. How has COVID, telework, and the high demand for IT professionals affected your ability to modernize and maintain cybersecurity?
Yeah, don't get rid of that question. I'm reading it. Oh,
okay.
Oh well. I lost it. Okay.
Oh, it's there.
Oh, there we go. Okay. COVID, telework. So things did change for us a lot in March of 2020, as it did with all other organizations in the world. So we had significantly more teleworkers, obviously, and we really had to change our infrastructure to support that from our I'm exhausted just thinking about those days. But our VPN and our ISP, our laptop builds, everything. Then I will say one of the hardest parts of being ITSO director is that high demand for their staff. they're asked to work many hours, and you know, with service disruptions, or a lot of times we can't do a change except at nighttime. And so that is one of those leadership challenges that So Director has. And there is a high demand. We are seeing some people leave because we're not 100% telework. And so those IT professionals that choose, who want to 100% telework, they find a place to go. So that is a difficulty for us, but we do have a dedicated professional staff here in OCIO, and within ITSO. They've worked doggedly through the years since I'd like to say since March 2020, but you know, even from the time I became DCIO, they're very, very committed. We have a separate IT security shop who make sure Tim is in line. The CISO makes sure, and prior to Tim being here, I will say that there was a little bit more conflict, and Tim's done a very good job at befriending that CISO, and the CISO has worked very closely with Tim. So Tim does have a CISSP. Might be why I hired him, I don't know. But he's a well-rounded individual. It is something I'm looking for, but he does have security as a priority in everything on the infrastructure.
Thank you. And Judith, with that, I think we're out of time. Do you have any final words?
I appreciate everybody who joined. I'm looking forward to seeing the candidate pool, but I'm even more looking forward to having the best person in this job. And I hope that we conveyed the importance of the mission and how exciting it is, the Library of Congress mission. I really wanted to convey that to you, that I love the Library of Congress and this institution, and I want someone to come in and just fall in love with the Library of Congress as much as I have. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. And just a final reminder on your screen is how to apply. You must apply online via USA Jobs. We strongly encourage you to also speak with the executive search team at JDG Associates about the position. And the deadline is October 10th. And this briefing will be posted on the library website for anybody that's interested in seeing it on the Career Showcase page.
Until it's closed, till the position's closed, correct?
Correct, until the position is closed. Okay, with that, thank you everybody for joining us.